Hey, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sue, and this is Jimmy. Jimmy's in all my videos. The name of my channel is Aliens Love Animals, and I named it that way because I feel like an alien on this very strange planet. So many things, I don't know, I don't get, I don't understand. So I use this channel to rant, to vent, specifically about issues that I'm involved with, which is animal rescue and veterinary medicine. And there's always going to be some sort of alien in my videos. Today was a different video than I had planned, but I decided to do this because in the course of, I don't know, what now, a week, I've had 3 people ask me the same questions. I want to be a vet tech, and I know you are one, and what do you think? Should I do it? Like, what are the pros and cons of being a vet tech? And I thought, okay, well, maybe this is a good topic for a video, so that's why I'm doing this. So before I go down my list, I want to clarify a few things. First, my background. I started as a receptionist at Angel Memorial Animal Hospital in Boston in 1981, and then I progressed to being a vet tech assistant and then a veterinary technician working in surgery, a little bit in ICU, and the general wards as a nurse. That's where I got the bulk of my training. I got certified in 1986, I believe, which is one of the first certification programs in the country. I went on to teach both at vet tech schools and at Tufts University Vet School. I've worked at least 10 different practices, ranging from high volume spay neuter, mobile clinics. I helped a board certified surgeon. I was his assistant for a while. I worked in private practice, blah, blah, blah. I am now retired. I have a rescue called Annie's Rescue Ride. And that is one of the reasons I started this channel, is because I want to raise money. And I know I'm not going to get monetized anytime soon or ever, but I have to try. So any money I get from doing these videos will go directly to my nonprofit, which is called Annie's Rescue Ride. So that's me, that's my background, that's my rescue. And the sun is right in my face, so we're going to have to deal with that. Anyways, so before I get into the pros and cons of whether or not to be a vet tech, first I want to differentiate between what is a veterinarian and what is a vet tech. Believe it or not, there's still people out there who think they're the same things. A veterinarian has to go through at least 4 years of postgraduate studies, and they have to pass a licensing test. If you want to be a specialist, you have to go further in your schooling and pass another test. So it's quite vigorous, and not everyone gets into vet school. And when you do become a vet, you are diagnosing, you're prescribing medication, you're devising a treatment plan. All those things a vet tech cannot do and is not supposed to do. Now, do they sometimes? Yes, but they're not supposed to. So veterinarian has postgraduate school. They have to go to school and they have to be licensed. They diagnose, they prescribe medication, they do treatment plans, et cetera, et cetera. Vet techs really don't have to go to school. You should, but you don't have to, and you don't have to be licensed. You should, but you don't have to. And you do not diagnose, you do not prescribe, and you don't devise treatment plans. Do some vet techs pretend they're veterinarians? Yes, but that's a whole nother video. So that's the difference between the two. Vastly different. The other question I'm going to answer before I get to the pros and cons is why be a vet tech when maybe you could just go to vet school? That's a complicated answer, but I think I can maybe break it down to maybe 4 different reasons. One is not everyone gets into vet school. They don't have the grades. They don't have the opportunity. Even sometimes they don't have the money to apply. It's very expensive to apply to vet schools, but mainly maybe they don't have the grades. And even if they did get into vet school, do they want that type of debt? Do they have the money to eventually pay off the loans? So there's that. and some people just don't want that responsibility. They don't want to be responsible for diagnosing life or death decisions, the hours that are involved in being a veterinarian, not only during school, but when you're working. So that could be some of the reasons why people choose just to be a vet tech instead of a vet. I think a lot of it's just because they couldn't get into vet school, or again, the money. I think that's the main reasons, but I'm really speaking for myself. I never tried to get into vet school. I wish I had at least tried. I probably would not have gotten in, but I should have tried. So if I do have advice for somebody, if you do want to go into vet school, try. And if you don't get in, at least you can, say to yourself, at least I gave it my all. So those are the two things I want to get over with before I go down my list. So I'm just going to go down my list. I'm going to start with the positives, which are the pros of the good things about being a vet tech. One of the first is that you actually do spend the most time with the animals versus the veterinarian. The veterinarian is doing exams, they're seeing appointments, they're in surgery, they're writing up files. If they own the clinic, they're doing all the stuff that is involved with owning a clinic. The actual time spent, the nursing care, the one-on-one is really the technician. They're the ones giving the medication, feeding, walking, cleaning, putting an IV catheter in, taking x-rays with them. So, so that is maybe one of the reasons you might want to be a vet tech instead of a veterinarian, because you do actually spend time with these animals. The second reason that's you might want to be a vet tech is you will make a difference. Now, you can make a difference in any job, really, but I mean, let's face it, if you're a cashier somewhere, I don't know how much of a difference are you really making, and I'm speaking that as an ex-cashier. You really can make a difference in the life of an animal. I've known vet techs who have noticed behavior in an animal or a symptom that the vet did not see, again, because we're spending all the time with these animals, and they brought it up, and that led to a diagnosis. Making that dog or cat's life more comfortable when they're in the hospital. Again, I'm just going to speak for myself. I have made sure an animal, if they weren't eating, I figured out a way to make them eat, or got them to eat, or gave them comfortable bedding when they didn't have any, made sure they got walked. All those things that you actually make a difference in the life of that animal while they're under your care. And again, as a tech, you can pick up on things that are sometimes missed. So there's that. One of my favorite reasons and parts of being a vet tech is you're always, always learning, or you should always be learning. There are people who they just stay in their little box and they just do what they're told, and they don't look over here, over there. Ask questions, read, go to seminars, do everything you can to absorb, be a sponge. And if you are that, you will learn from the moment you step into a clinic to the moment you step out and retire. That is the one thing I do miss after not being in the profession now for about a year, is I miss that learning and that back and forth that you have with the vet and your coworkers. So that is an amazing positive for being a vet tech. This next one is a pro and a con. It's a very physical job. It's physically taxing, and in some cases it can ruin you. I've known vet techs who just couldn't do it. Their knees gave out, their back gave out. I love the physicality of the job. I love being on my feet. I love running around. I love keeping busy. I would be on my feet for 17 hours sometimes, and I was just fine with it. Many people are not fine with that. You're wrestling down dogs and cats. You're moving, you're lifting, you're pulling, you're pushing, you're cleaning. That really takes its toll. And you also work really long hours. Now, my 17-hour shift, that wasn't a norm, but many shifts are 12 hours long. Sometimes you never sit down. Again, that was a huge positive for me. I don't like sitting down. So if you like that type of physicality, this is for you. Being a vet tech, You can also veer off into different avenues or specialties. Back when I started, there weren't any specialties available. Now you can specialize in emergency medicine, in dentistry, in physical therapy, in shelter medicine. So you can do all of these different specialties that, again, weren't available when I was doing it, which I think is great. And I wish I had that available because I would have done it. Excuse me. Along those lines, about maybe veering off, you can also do other gig work that involves that being a vet tech is a benefit. For instance, being a pet sitter. I do pet sitting, and I think a lot of my clients chose me because I was a certified vet tech. You know, I take care of diabetic cats, diabetic dogs. I give injections, I can give subcu fluids, the whole thing. So that is like just an added little gig that you can do as a vet tech. I mean, anyone can be a pet sitter really, but I think it's a huge benefit if you're a veterinary technician. I know vet techs who've done consulting work. They do dog training. You can write, you could be an author. So YouTube channels, anything. So I think that is also a great way to keep your mind mentally active and also don't get bored with the profession and also make more extra money. Let's see, specialize. The other smaller, I guess, pros, not as important as the others, is when you work as a vet tech, you probably have animals at home. You'll get a discount. Sometimes you get a free exam. You get discounts on meds. You'll have access to a clinic. Nowadays, it's really hard to get appointments. There's a waiting list. You'll always have access to a doctor. That's huge. I think now especially, and that's, again, one of the things I miss the most about not working at a clinic is I don't have access anymore. In some cases, not always, you can bring your pet to work. Usually they have to stay in a cage. But I've worked in clinics where I was allowed to take my dog and they were able to run around, which was really cool. So, yeah, there are little perks about working in a vet clinic that you don't get in another job. So those are the pros. I know there's more. I probably missed some. If anyone's watching this, feel free to chime in and comment. I want to know what I missed. But to me, those were the ones that stood out the most. Well, actually, I did forget one. Being a vet tech, unlike being a veterinarian, you can just, once you punch out and leave for the day, you can leave for the day. You're not going to be responsible for diagnosing an animal, worrying about them. I mean, you will worry, but it's truly not your responsibility. It's the vet's. You won't get those phone calls from the pet owner. You don't have to worry about writing up records late at night. Even being liable for something if something happens. It's going to be the vet who gets sued, not you as a vet tech. So some people just don't want that responsibility, and that's fine. So that would be, I guess, a pro of being a vet tech. The cons are, the list is much shorter, much shorter. Like I said before, this was a pro in my mind, but a con in some others, the intense physicality of this job. If you don't like being on your feet, if you have back problems, knee problems, you don't have a lot of energy, you might maybe want to work in a pretty low-key area, like maybe dermatology, where there's not a lot of running around with emergencies. Maybe work as a receptionist. You can sit behind the desk. But that's something you really have to understand and accept with this job. You're going to get bit, you're going to be scratched. I guarantee you. You're going to be on your feet. You might not be able to break for lunch. And that's the other thing is, unlike other jobs, animals don't know it's lunchtime. Animals don't know it's a holiday. Animals don't know that you're ready to go home. They get sick whenever. So sometimes you're going to have to stay late. And sometimes you're going to miss supper. So if you don't think that's for you, all that stuff, you might want to maybe either don't go in the profession or maybe go into it and maybe knowing you're going to go into something fairly low key where the physical aspect is not as intense. Um, you're going to deal with death. I mean, it comes with the territory. Euthanasia, death, especially in emergency medicine. I did know techs who came into a job and said, I refuse to help with euthanasias. That really pissed me off because why should you be exempt from that? It's part of the job. It just is. And I think that's an area where you can really make a difference with the pet owner and being there for them. I know some people go in alone. They don't have anybody. They appreciate the comfort you give them and the words. But you have to understand that death is part of this profession. Again, if you don't want to do that, you might want to go with dermatology, where you're not going to see a lot of death, if any. Something, again, more low key, not as intense. The other thing that I've found, not in all clinics, again, I'm not talking across the board, I find clinics, especially with a lot of employees, kind of cliquey. Again, I think this isn't maybe in every profession, but I can only speak to what I've seen. And it's hard to sometimes be accepted. Unfortunately, I think there's some techs out there who are frustrated veterinarians and they act accordingly. And it's hard to be around those people. They're fairly dominant types. And it just seems to be more plentiful and common in vet clinics. I've worked in other areas like retail and things like that, and I never found that to be true. Just my experience. But I think that's probably common in a lot of different professions. Money. I don't think that I don't think the salaries are that great. It's certainly gotten better. This all depends on where you live. I have found California and more on the East Coast, they do pay much better. I just saw a job today that was paying up to $30 an hour. In other places, you start out at 15 or 16. I would say maybe the average is in the low 20s at this point, but again, it depends on where you live, your expertise, the facility that you're working in. But don't expect to be rolling in the dough. That's why I think it's important to maybe do side jobs and gig jobs that are beneficial to, more income and that you can use your vet tech skills. So money, not so great, not terrible. It's gotten better. That's why I think you should be certified, get an education, you can demand a higher salary. This is the one that I find the most difficult, this con, is that you have no control as a vet tech. You have maybe a little bit control over how you do your nursing care and everything, but as far as diagnosing and getting the treatment plan and what drugs are given to this animal, it's not in your control. And unfortunately, as you get more experience and you really get good at your job, sometimes you do know more than the vet. I know that sounds terrible, but sometimes you do. And sometimes you have to watch things being done or being told to do something that you know is wrong. My last job, I had to work with the vet, and she frequently gave me the wrong dose, and I would, in a very nice way, try to say, hey, is this the dose you really want? Or sometimes some vets don't like giving pain medication, and there's nothing you can do about it because legally you can't give that pain medication. That's the worst part. You have no control over what they tell you to do. The only control you have is you can leave. And I have left clinics because I just couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't take that they didn't believe in giving pain medication. They would give the wrong drug, the wrong dose, or they just didn't care. It was, in some cases, it was pretty awful. Thankfully, for most of my life, I've worked with the best of the best. And I'm just going to give a shout out to a couple of them. I'm missing a lot, but Dr. Zanotti, Dr. Thayer, and Dr. Sisson, thank you for being freaking brilliant. There's like 20 more I could mention, but I want to make this video somewhat short. So yeah, not having control, that sucks. And then this is kind of a minor one, but Vet techs, that word, that terminology is kind of a catch-all. So a person who has no experience, maybe watch a YouTube video or something on being a vet tech, is called a vet, and they work at a vet clinic. They're called a vet tech, just like I was called a vet tech after being certified and going to school and having 30 plus years of experience. We're both called vet techs. And that always bothered me because we're not the same. We're not the same. And whereas a veterinarian, at least with a veterinarian, they all had to go to a certain amount of schooling and they all had to get licensed. That's why they're called a vet. So even though veterinarians can differ in their capabilities and, competence, at least with veterinarians, they had a complete vet school and they had to be licensed to pass a test. With vet techs, like I said, one could never have passed a test or went to school, and others do the whole shebang, and we're both called vet techs. That's just more of a personal little thing with me. It's just, we're not all made the same. So there's that. Other than that, I don't really, and again, I'm probably missing something, but for the most part, I say go for it. Would I do it again? Yes, I would. Sometimes in years past, I probably would have said no, but I met some amazing, inspirational people. I've learned so much. I know I've made a difference, and I would definitely do it again. The only difference is I think I would have tried to get into vet school, so at least I know I would have made the effort. Other than that, I say go for it, and just be the best you can. Ask questions, listen, be ethical, and don't be afraid to leave a clinic if you know they're not doing the right thing. You'll find your people. Believe me, I found my people finally. Not at my last job, which, believe me, is a whole nother video. We'll talk about that later. Not very nice people who did not care about the right way to practice veterinary medicine. But like I said, I've been around the best of the best, and I am forever thankful. So I'm going to end it here. Thank you again. Remember, Andy's Rescue Ride, that's my 501c3 animal rescue. I'm really trying to monetize this channel and help me get there. Jimmy and I thank you, and peace out.